In the Central Asian country of Uzbekistan, at the beginning of each school year in September, students return from break, but instead of going to classrooms, they are sent to the vast cotton fields that paint the arid landscape to begin harvesting by hand. This is not optional. No one asks the parents for consent, and it lasts for 2 entire months. Depending on the child's age, they are required to gather 20 to 60 kilograms per day. Failing to do so subjects them to ridicule in front of the whole class the next morning. Children unlucky enough to live far from their assigned fields often have to sleep in sheds that contain farming machinery and animals, and there are no kitchens or bathrooms to speak of. And it's not just the school children. In fact, the harvesting of cotton in Uzbekistan represents the largest seasonal labor mobilization in the world, bringing 2 million workers, with some 500,000 of those being forced to do so. These cotton fields, which account for 45% of Uzbekistan's entire economy, are largely an ecological anomaly. See, Uzbekistan is doubly landlocked, meaning that all nations that surround it are also landlocked. This aids in it being, unsurprisingly, quite dry, experiencing only 2 to 9 inches of rainfall a year, which is not nearly enough to naturally sustain such large swaths of cotton plantations. The water that hydrates the fields that the students are forced to pick is the product not of nature, but of a communist utopian pipe dream to shape nature to the wills of man. If you look at any geography textbook from the 1960s or prior, you're bound to see a list of the world's largest lakes. However, in every subsequent textbook, one lake, the Aral Sea, which for reference is the size of Ireland, has been steadily and rapidly dropping in rank to its lowest place of 22nd largest. That, of course, is if you count it all together, as the sea is separated into multiple smaller sections. In just 5 decades, the vibrant Aral Sea has lost 90% of its original surface area, representing a loss of 1% of Earth's entire supply of surface fresh water. What was once a thriving ecological and economic zone within the heart of Central Asia has become one of, if not the worst, human-made natural catastrophes in history. This, coupled with its relative lack of attention on the global stage, has earned the disaster the moniker the silent Chernobyl. What at first may appear as just the loss of a large lake is in actuality the stage and route for modern child slavery in the region, biological weapon leaks, severe regional climate change, one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world, and cancer rates that are 20 times above global averages. The story of the Aral Sea is as much a story about human hubris as it is about economic strife, utopian visions of the future, geopolitical tensions, and ultimately hope. Central Asia, for all of human history, was shaped by 2 cradles of life in a largely inhospitable land: the Caspian Sea, a remnant of an ancient seafloor, and the Aral Sea, the creation of which was largely by accident. A few million years ago, a depression formed on the border of modern-day Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. About 12,000 years ago, the Amu Darya River changed course, causing it to slowly fill in the Aral Depression. The result was a massive body of fresh water that fostered a lush ecosystem and abundant fish, drawing in tens of thousands of people to its shores. The Aral Sea is a terminal lake, meaning it has no natural outlet to the ocean. Therefore, it maintains its water level through an equilibrium of feedwaters through the Amu Darya and Darya rivers and evaporation. Humans got their first glimpse into the precarious balance of the sea when, in the medieval period, something happened to one of the 2 feed rivers. We still don't know exactly what was the cause, however it resulted in the lake starting to dry. We know from historical records written at the time that the sea ceased to exist by 1417, causing destruction and abandonment for the humans that called the coast their home. However, by the 16th century, the rivers began to flow into the depression once more, and it regained its full size by 1517. This was humanity's warning about the precarious nature of the massive lake, but that warning would fall on deaf ears. By the late 19th century, the Aral Sea was once again a vibrant region of social and economic activity, employing over 40,000 fishermen and being home to 3.5 million people. By now, the region was within the territory of the Russian Empire, and one famous Russian climatologist, Alexander Voykov, took to having a particular disdain for the sea, going so far as to call it a useless evaporator. He would die with the Aral Sea being more vibrant than ever before. However, his ideas would inspire entire future generations. By 1948, Stalin had firmly cemented the newly born Soviet Union as a superpower with the defeat of Germany in World War II. Emboldened by the glorious victory, Stalin set forth the great plan for the transformation of nature. The Communist Party of the Soviet Union truly believed they could engineer their country into a utopia, and a big part of that effort would be to transform the vast areas of low productivity, barren lands. One of the most significant undertakings was to divert large portions of the Amu Dryas and Sira Dryas rivers into the adjacent arid desert landscape in an effort to make Central Asia into a lush and fertile agricultural powerhouse. Focusing on the production of cotton, which they referred to as white gold, would not only help supply clothing for the people of the USSR, but would also be convertible into foreign capital through a heavy focus on exports. Immense efforts went into building irrigation canals that dramatically reduced the inflows into the Aral Sea. This was not done blindly. The scientists knew this would reduce the Aral Sea's size, but they and Stalin believed Voikov. Besides, who cares about taking water away from a useless evaporator? Ironically, the poorly constructed irrigation canals meant that 70% of the water leaked out into the desert landscape anyways. After Stalin's death, under the command of Nikita Khrushchev, these disastrous land reforms were pushed even further, and even more water was diverted. However, in terms of achieving the initial goals, the Soviet Union's plan was wildly successful. Uzbekistan by 1988 became the largest exporter of cotton in the world, causing living standards in the region to rise by a relatively significant margin while exporting the white gold to the rest of the world, helping to offset the trade imbalances with the West. However, the scientists were not right about everything, and the region became a ticking time bomb. Significant pullbacks in the coastline began in the early 1960s, much faster than was commonly expected. The millions that lived and depended on the sea started to see it move away and toward the horizon. Prosperous towns like Aralsk and Tastebek saw their thriving economies implode. The waters began to retreat with accelerated haste, and by the early 90s, these fishing towns were now a 2-hour drive from the coastline. The receding waters also brought some rather unexpected side effects. Aralsk 7 was a Soviet bioweapons research lab that was originally on one of the many islands. The location was chosen as it was thought that its remote location and island status would prevent the possibility of leaks or contaminations. With the water levels rapidly lowering, the island became a peninsula. While never officially confirmed, nearby infrequent outbreaks of the bubonic plague and arsenic poisonings proved to be highly suspect. By 1987, the Aral Sea split into the North and South Aral Seas. Salt levels drastically rose, killing off most of the fish, leaving the nearby villages without food. By 2002, the sea split again, with the new East Sea being separated from the South Sea. That sea would entirely dry up in 2014, leaving the total water surface area less than 10% of what it was in 1960. Today, the area has become a wasteland. The Soviet scientists, who originally thought the seafloor would solidify from being sunbaked, were wrong once again. What was left behind was a very fine powder that contained pesticides like DEET from the outflows from the cotton plantations and toxic runoff from the old factories. The strong and frequent winds that sweep the landscape cause these highly poisonous particles to be carried for miles, leading to kidney and respiratory diseases, as well as causing a cancer rate that is 20 times higher than the worldwide average. Infant mortality rates are beaten out only by the very worst places in sub-Saharan Africa. To make matters even worse, the region, now without the sea stabilizing the climate, experiences blistering summers and freezing winters, with temperatures oscillating between -40 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. In 2015, National Geographic published an interview with a local named Yusuf Kamilov who said, "This is what the end of the world looks like. If we ever have Armageddon, the people of kazakhstan are the only ones who will survive, because we are already living it." While the southern portion of the Aral Sea continues to disappear off the face of the planet, something remarkable has been happening in the north. Falling within the boundaries of Kazakhstan after the Soviet Union's collapse in 1991, significant efforts have been made to stave off the complete collapse of the sea. With the help of $87 million from the World Bank, Kazakhstan decided to dam off the connection between the North and South Seas, reasoning they could save one sea by killing the other. This was done by building the Cockerel Dam. Completed in 2015, it was believed that the waters would slowly replenish over the course of a decade. However, the world was amazed when the water levels climbed 3.3 meters in just 7 months. With this, the salt levels gradually fell, and by 2010, the Kazakh government decided to reintroduce the fish that once called the sea home. They thrived, and the old and impoverished fishing villages like Aralsk saw fishing become a lucrative industry once again for the first time in over 3 decades. Once 150 kilometers away from the shore, the villagers now only have to travel 17. With the current infrastructure, this is as close as the water levels will come to being restored. However, plans to raise the Cockerel Dam another 4 meters could, in theory, bring waters back to the docks of the old seaside towns like Aralsk. This is miraculous. However, efforts have been thrown into serious question with the recent civil unrest in Kazakhstan. However, not all countries in the region have been so helpful. With power and stability being of utmost importance for the leaders of the newly independent Central Asian countries like Uzbekistan, the willingness to reduce industries their countries heavily rely upon like cotton became out of the question. Without the direct help from Moscow and a continuance of price controls, farmers became unwilling to invest in or maintain agricultural machinery, directly leading to the decision to implement a policy of using school children as forced labor in order to keep up profits that are used to prop up the current regime. The Aral Sea, which resides in Uzbekistan's territory, is unlikely to be restored without a change in government. Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, from which the waters originate, also have a vested interest in damming the 2 rivers to produce hydroelectricity, which is complicating matters even more. For now, multiple low-income and unstable governments must unrealistically come together to starve off the complete collapse of the Southern Sea. The story of the Aral Sea is a story against the notion that utopia is a real thing and that humanity can bend nature to its every desire. From a Neolithic paradise to a toxic desert wasteland, the Aral Sea, more than anything, is a warning against our own hubris.